Hello, students, and a very warm welcome to you all. When you're on your way to school, have you ever looked around and just noticed all the different kinds of work people are doing? Well, today, we're going to look at a really interesting topic from your economics textbook that explains exactly that, the sectors of the Indian economy. We're going to break it all down into simple, easy-to-understand parts.
Every single day, we see people working all around us, don't we? You might see a farmer working in a field, a teacher in your school, maybe some workers heading to a factory, or even the person running the local shop. All these people are engaged in what we call economic activities. They are all doing something to earn a living.
So, what exactly makes an activity an economic activity? Well, the main idea is very simple. If an activity involves making something, selling something, or providing a service, and in return it helps someone earn an income, then it is an economic activity. Simple as that.
Now, with so many different kinds of jobs happening all around us, from making pots to writing software, you might be wondering, how do we possibly make sense of it all? How can we study them in a proper, organized way?
Let's think about your school library for a minute. Imagine if all the books were just put on the shelves randomly. It would be almost impossible to find the book you want, right? That's exactly why we group them. We have sections for science, for history, for English. This grouping, or what we call classification, it just helps us understand things much better.
In the very same way, economists also group all these different economic activities into special categories. And these categories have a name. They are called sectors. And that's the key word we need to remember for our lesson today.
Okay, so let's get started. We'll begin with the very first group, which is called the primary sector. You can think of this as the foundation, the very base of the entire economy. So what is the primary sector? It includes all those activities where we produce a good by directly using natural resources. The important words here are directly using natural resources. We are taking something straight from nature, from the earth, from the water, or from the air.
So what could be some examples? Well, agriculture or farming is the biggest one, of course. But you can also think of things like dairy, where we get milk from animals, or fishing, where we catch fish from rivers and seas, or even forestry, where we get wood from trees, and mining, where we take out minerals from deep inside the earth. All these are primary activities.
Let's take cotton, for example. Growing cotton is a perfect example of a primary activity. Why? Because the growth of the cotton plant depends almost completely on natural factors like rainfall, sunshine, and the climate. Because this sector gives us the basic raw materials for everything else, it forms the base for all other products.
Okay, so now we have our raw materials from nature. What happens next? Well, that brings us to our second category, the secondary sector.
The secondary sector is all about one word, manufacturing. This is where the natural products that we got from the primary sector are changed or transformed into other, more useful things. The product is not made by nature anymore. It has to be made, usually in a factory or a workshop.
Let's see how this works. Remember the cotton fiber? That's a primary product. We take that fiber and we spin it into yarn and then weave it into cloth. That whole process, that's a secondary activity. Here's another one. We take sugarcane from the fields, a primary product, and we process it in a sugar mill to make sugar or gur. See? We are adding value to the natural product.
Here's another really simple example. We take earth, which is a natural resource, and we manufacture bricks out of it. Because this sector is so closely connected with different kinds of industries, we also call it the industrial sector.
So we have our raw materials and we have our manufactured goods. But is that all? Not quite. And this brings us to our third and final category for today, the tertiary sector. Now, the most important thing to remember here is that the tertiary sector does not produce any goods. Instead, it produces services. You can think of these services as a support system. They help the primary and secondary sectors to work properly. And just because it doesn't make a physical product, that doesn't mean it's any less important.
So, what kind of services are we talking about? Let's think about it. The cloth and the sugar that we made, they need to be moved to the markets, right? That's where transport like trucks and trains come in. Businesses need money to run, so they take loans from banks. We need teachers, we need doctors, we need shopkeepers to sell us the goods. Even modern IT services, like the people working in call centers, they are all part of this sector.
The postman is a perfect example. He isn't making anything, is he? No, but he is providing a very important service, a communication service. And because this whole sector is about generating services, it is also known as the service sector.
Now, this is a very, very important point. We must understand that these three sectors do not work alone. They are not in separate boxes. In fact, they are highly interdependent. That means they depend very heavily on each other to function.
Let's do a little thought experiment. Just imagine for a moment what would happen if all the farmers decided we are not going to sell our sugarcane to the sugar mills. What do you think would happen?
The answer is quite simple, isn't it? The sugar mill, which is in the secondary sector, would have no raw material to work with. It would eventually have to shut down. This shows us very clearly how the secondary sector depends on the primary sector.
Okay, let's take another situation. What if one day all the truck drivers and the train drivers go on a strike? The transporters who belong to the tertiary sector, they just stop working. What will happen then? The result would be a big problem. The farmers in the primary sector couldn't get their vegetables and grains to the cities. The factories in the secondary sector wouldn't get their raw materials or be able to send their finished goods out. This shows that both primary and secondary sectors are completely dependent on the tertiary sector.
All right, students, we have covered all the main concepts now. So let's do a very quick summary of everything to help you revise for your exams.
This table here is absolutely perfect for a quick revision. It shows you very clearly what each sector does and gives you some key examples. So remember, primary is from nature, secondary is from factories, and tertiary provides services. I would suggest you take a screenshot of this for your notes.
And here are the most important definitions. You must learn these by heart for your 1-mark questions, and even for your 3-mark explanation questions. Remember the key words: natural resources for primary, manufacturing for secondary, services for tertiary, and mutual reliance for interdependence.
So, I will leave you with one final question to think about. As a country, like India, continues to grow and develop, which of these 3 sectors do you think will become the most important for our future? And why do you think so? This is a great topic to discuss with your friends and your teacher. Thank you, and I will see you in the next class.